I trust my husband, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
I know that might be hard to believe because I don't trust anybody. Oh, speaking of which, speaking of trust, should we tease it? Did we tease it last week?
I think we can tease it.
Did we tease it? So we have a book that we've written, and it's going to be published in the near future. We're just working on cover art. Should we tell them what it's called?
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that.
It's called Reasons to Trust the Government.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Just imagine what that is going to be like.
Awesome.
Just imagine in your little minds.
A nail biter. A nail biter.
A lot of
Page turner of people waiting to see, okay, when does it happen? When do we get to trust them?
Yes. I will explain it to you in detail. You will come away from reading this book having a full understanding. A complete and utter, just like that, understanding of how you can trust the government.
Yeah.
Reasons for trusting the government.
Solid arguments.
Solidly reasoned. Not really.
Lots
okay,
of utters.
So what's that, Michael?
Nothing. Go ahead.
So one of the
I
things.
like the utters.
Oh, okay. Wait, we might have James back. James, did you get it figured out or what, my man?
Let's see.
We're live. Don't say anything embarrassing.
Yeah, I got it figured out. I just can't hear you guys very well. Just 1 second.
All right. Nope. No bueno. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, we'll see if he comes back to join us. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we've been just making noise for a little while. Is that long enough? Now I can play my intro.
Let's do it.
Okay, so here comes the intro. Where is it? Brand intro.
The best intro ever.
It is.
Love it.
I'm here.
You know, I'm not gonna
I love that.
Love that.
It gets me every time. The Eagles cry for freedom.
Every time the Eagles cry for freedom. That's correct. That is, I have to thank my sweet husband, Benjamin Nathaniel Reddick II. Lord
Reddick.
Or Lord Violence, as he's also called, as he is the violence conductor.
That's this.
That's this.
I had it before Black Panther.
Before
I
Black
just
Panther.
Point that out, and Wonder Woman. I was doing it before them. They stole it.
That is true. She added that thing, and I don't really get it. We won't get into film reviews today. We won't get into film reviews today. But what we will get into is some good times and some antics. I am really excited. Okay, wait, hold on. Okay, is James frozen or is he moving?
Spinning.
He's frozen.
He's frozen.
James, are you there?
I think you can hear us though.
That's so crazy how bad his internet is.
Is he in Vermont?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
I think he's in Franklin County somewhere. I'm trying to remember.
Oh, okay.
But okay. So I am really, really excited today to share people's experiences that are not white and who identify as some variety of conservatives, right of center, in other words. Everyone that we have here with us today isn't what you would consider like a normal Republican or a normal conservative. I think there's this misconception that if you are right of center, that you're, well, a white supremacist.
Well, yeah.
Everyone is racist, for sure.
What you thought you have is a KKK dream.
What? Oh my God! Have you guys? Okay, does anybody watch Stu Does America?
No.
Okay, there's this YouTuber. His show is called Stu Does America. It's STU Stu, and he has a song for his segments. And there's a little song, and it goes, "Everything is racist."
Oh, my son watches that.
This is a KKK dream. Everything is racist. It's really quite catchy.
Ah.
It is an earworm.
That's not good.
I'm working on my own version
Yeah.
of the same thing.
You
One
need,
of-
you need to reclaim that. Yes, please.
I really think so. Dietrich, one of Benjamin's business partners, is a sound engineer and he makes music. So he's got the track. So we've got that nailed down. So now we just have to decide how we're gonna sing the everything is racist type theme, so that we can have segments that everything is racist. But no, seriously. So there's this thought that like anybody who considers themselves a conservative or who values constitutional rights or things like that are just these crazy right-wing people. And what I found in talking to people is we all are varying degrees of conservative. Like Michael, I believe you said that you support UBI, if I'm correct. And then I know, Danielle, you're a little more conservative. I think you're more like in line with me. I'm like pretty conservative for a lot of things. Well, but then I'm really liberal on stuff too. And then Olga, I remember you don't call yourself a Republican. You think of yourself as a libertarian, right?
I am a libertarian. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's where you're like, you do you, like I'll do me. Right. So everybody's got some kind of version of that. And none of
what does that mean? You do you. What is that? I hear that a lot. What does that actually mean?
Go
You
ahead.
do you.
You don't want to explain it? It's like you get to be you. Like if you're a dude and you want to wear a dress, like I don't care. If you are gay or whatever, like do as long as you don't make me pay for it or have to like endorse it
Or like endanger
others, endangering yourself. That concerns me. I want people to be safe, but like I don't care. Like if you want to shoot your guns in your backyard, you want to breastfeed your kid till they're 2, you want to like, I don't care. No, there's some people who breastfeed
was doing all of that. Yep.
Yeah.
Let's do all of that at the same time.
That's what, and then some people, and then you've got like the health freedom in there, like people, vaccines or not, and all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, you can even like, people have really strong feelings about breastfeeding in public or not. That's
you could use a bidet or you could use toilet paper. It's your choice.
There you go.
You do you, Michael.
You want to be classy or savage? It's your call.
Yes.
Not you.
The core
not
principle.
You do. It's you do you.
Not the do. The core principle of like libertarian is essentially we don't want the government telling us what to do. Basically, your rights end where mine begin. I'm okay with what you do in your backyard as long as you don't tell me what to do in mine, and just mutual respect and responsibility.
Yes, exactly. So one of the things that I want to do is, oh man, okay, I'm going to leave him in for a little bit and see if it like works itself out. This makes me so sad. I really want James to share his experience. Because it's cool and everybody on here is really unique in some way. And I really value all of you differently. Like, okay, anyway, I'm geeking out. Okay, so we'll start with Michael. Why don't you start since you're in the middle? You're next to me. Well, actually,
Let's let him go.
Okay, we'll introduce you after.
I thought I was right of center.
Oh my God, whatever. You're right in the middle. You're right in the middle, Michael.
Okay, I'm on the right in the middle. Yeah.
So why don't take a moment, everybody? What I've asked everyone to do is take a moment to describe themselves, like, hey, I'm Michael or Danielle or whoever. I'm so and so. This is what I do. My nationality or my race is X. So that we all kind of, because the point is really to show that not everyone is white who is conservative and kind of experienced. So who you are, maybe what you do, what your race is. And
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. Okay. Did you have something to say, James?
I don't think he can hear us.
Oh, okay. He said, I'm sorry to interrupt. And then he didn't say anything. So, so your who you are, your race, and then what we'll get into in the course of the conversation is how you came to being a conservative, small c. So, okay, Michael, you go ahead and start.
Thank you. I think I'm right of center now.
There is no center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all in corners.
So my name's Michael, and I let's see, my name, what I do. I'm an entrepreneur. I own a couple businesses in the accounting and fintech space. I've been in Burlington for 9.5 years, and got 3 young kids. My parents are Chinese ethnically, but were born and raised in Cambodia. And so they are refugees. They survived the Cambodian genocide from 1975 to 79, and were under, at that time, communist, when Cambodia went under communist control. And so, and then they escaped in 1979, and came to the U.S. in 1981, where I was born shortly after they landed. So I grew up kind of with the context of that in my family background, the communist, or the communist experiment, as they like to call it, that the Khmer Rouge took Cambodia through for 4 years and wiped out millions of people in the name of progress. And so yeah, I definitely have a perspective on that. a little bit. And so yeah, and I was born and raised in Tempe, Arizona, and now I live in Burlington, Vermont.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Do you remember Cambodia? How old were you?
No, I was born here. So,
oh, that's right. You were born here, but your parents.
Yeah.
Fled. Okay.
So I've been there 2 times to Cambodia. I still have family, a lot of family there.
Do you have any siblings?
I have siblings. I have younger siblings here.
Okay.
No,
So
I have an older sibling, 2 younger siblings here, and then no, I don't have any siblings over there. Most of my mother and father's side moved here, but I have uncles, aunts, and cousins that all live there. I have literally a cousin my age that probably looks exactly like me or very similar to me that is an entrepreneur in Cambodia, right? And
DNA.
It's in the DNA. So yeah, it's yeah. So I don't know what else you wanted to.
That's great. That's perfect. That's perfect. Olga, you can go next. We're gonna just go in a circle like this.
Sure.
Clockwise.
My name is Olga. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. I'm an acupuncturist, an herbalist. I was a paramedic in New York City, and I taught in New York City for a brief time when I was just out of college. I'm homeschooling my kids. I'm starting a homestead. I am Latina. My mom was born and raised in Puerto Rico. My father emigrated here from Colombia, and I grew up in New York City. And I'm a former Marxist and socialist and progressive. Wow. I know.
Marxist. You went all the way. You said
it's kind of my personality. Kind of my personality. It's like, but yeah. So clearly, in college, that's why I kind of understand a lot of this rhetoric and all that stuff we talked about. But when I moved up here and was able to understand what the Second Amendment was about, that was the game changer for me, which is why I'm a huge Second Amendment advocate. I'm a libertarian. I'm a member of the local Libertarian Party and of the Mises Caucus, which is the libertarian wing of the Libertarian Party.
Wait, what?
The Mises Caucus.
Wait, that doesn't make any sense. The libertarian wing of the Libertarian Party?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I'll share with you another time.
Okay.
I also host a podcast called Liberty and Me, and it's a Facebook page as well that just kind of takes things, understanding like the liberty movement from being formerly on the left.
Well, and isn't it funny? Like liberty, the root has the same root word as liberal. Liberty, liberal, like it's all our Constitution. What's funny is actually very liberal because it is meant to allow for so many different kinds of people.
Well, that's classical liberalism. Is that
who knew?
Right.
They've hijacked it. They hijacked it.
It's kind of like when you go to a Chinese buffet,
Mhm.
and then you ask the Chinese buffet where the real Chinese food is. So it's like, is it like that? Like libertarian arm of the libertarian? It's like,
No,
Do they look-
that part. Well, it's like anything.
Like that.
There's a spectrum of kind of views and perspectives. So that's kind of like the most libertarian
Like,
of the
Do they,
liberty.
do they get
Mega.
along? Do they get? I mean,
No, of course not.
No, okay.
Libertarians.
Just curious.
It's a shit show.
that's funny.
Okay, and Danielle, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Danielle Weatherford, and I'm a child of God first, and then
Oh.
wife and mother. I have 2 boys.
Very attractive young men, too, by the way. Your
thank
son
you.
is pretty. Like
They're
so
pretty. Yeah, he's pretty. Yeah.
It's got uncomfortable all of a sudden.
Yeah.
No, he's like
He is pretty. No, he is pretty.
He's really pretty.
He looks like a model.
He does look like a model. I'm sorry, I totally interrupted you.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay.
Touch on
You
your kids some
can
more.
interrupt. It doesn't bother me at all. So, I'm outside of Austin, Texas. So I say Austin, Texas is where I'm at. I'm a Texas girl. I've got my jar.
Oh.
So I'm bougie
Damn.
when I want to be, but it might come out another way. So yeah, a
Nice.
little bit of anyway.
Are you guys drinking moonshine like me, or am I the only one?
That's
No,
This is Gatorade.
Find out
This
when
is
solo,
some-
boss.
Spark or
That is a solo mission. Okay?
but
I'm just kidding.
hey, and more power
It
to
could
you. He's
happen.
all about drinking mead. That's what his thing is.
Mead? What's
Um,
mead?
Fermented honey, right?
Honey wine.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay. All right.
like the olden
More power to
days.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
He's bougie.
The
And
olden days.
it's like $18 for a bottle of wine.
Wow.
It's a
Yeah.
treat.
Yeah, he's
It
is.
bougie.
It is.
Yeah, you talk about bougie.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Anyway, okay.
Anyway, sorry. My occupation, I am an entertainment executive for a production studio as well as a tech firm, the only woman-owned
Yep.
entertainment and technology company in Austin, Texas.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, ding. And let's see, I'm a Black female. That's how I identify myself. I am or African American, depending on where I'm at. So Black female.
Got it.
Now
I will go there.
But you are mixed race, right? One of your parents
No.
is white and one was black.
No, my
No?
mom looks white. No, both my grandparents are Black.
Oh.
Both their parents are Black and Black.
No, why
As
did
my
I
son would say, Black. So
Wait.
yes,
wait? What is it?
yes, they're
Black.
Black. Yes, we are Black. We are
Like
African.
wicked mega black.
We are mega Black. The color of the
Right.
skin might not be looking a certain way, but we are Black. So, yeah. So,
Speaking of black, that'd be you.
That's
right?
me. That's my
That would be.
designation.
I'm
all right.
that's
Designation?
weird
Yeah.
saying that.
Yeah.
Probably gonna get in
Copy.
trouble.
Yeah,
They're gonna like cut that out and be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's
It's fine.
Probably.
now, let me say this. I was a staunch Democrat because that's what my parents were, and their parents were, and their parents were. For many, many years. And let's say all the way till, I want to say 1992. And began reflecting back on some things and paid attention to some experiences that I started to have at some corporations and started studying. And that I hated Ronald Reagan. I just did not like him. Totally feel different about them now, you know? Well, that lady did. So, anyway, that's where I was, and I'm at a different place in my thinking these days.
So, okay, so hold on. Okay, James, you're live. Don't say anything embarrassing. James, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, well, for right now.
All right, I'm here.
All right. Well, while we have you,
I'm
give
here.
give a quick introduction. Your name.
It's that Vermont internet. It's not my fault.
That's right.
We need that $2 trillion
can-
jobs bill to build internet in the boondocks of Vermont. James, if you can hear me,
Do
go
you
ahead.
see how my governor is cozying up to the Biden administration?
Oh my God, we're not talking about that. I'm the only one who can have asides. No one else can. No, just give it an quick introduction of yourself and where you're from, what race you consider yourself, and I had mentioned previously that we'll get into kind of how we became conservative. But if you want to give like a quick little background on yourself to introduce to everybody.
Hello, everyone. My name is James. I'm 30 years old. I work in the appliance industry. I live in St. Albans, Vermont. It's majority white. I was adopted by a Caucasian family. I'm originally from Philadelphia, Allentown to be technical. I'm a single father. I was a Democrat. I actually was like the biggest Kennedy fan, and I still find myself liking Kennedy a little bit because in today's political game, you don't see politicians as smooth as Kennedy's anymore. It's not even fun to watch politics anymore. I was a Democrat. Like, I remember literally, this is what I'll end on, but I remember distinctly the day that Trump was inaugurated. And at that very point, I was not happy that he was being elected because I didn't think he was right and fit for the office, because I had this this bigger than life perspective of what the president should be, and not realizing how much of a job and how connected you should be to your constituents. I didn't understand that, and I didn't think he was serious. And now I am on the right. I'm not hard right, like I wasn't storming the Capitol hard right, but I'm pretty conservative because I feel like we are in a serious time, and then we need conservative voices when there seems to be no common sense.
Oh, I unmuted myself. Okay, so honey, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I can go.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, my name is Benjamin Nathaniel Reddick II, aka the Violence Conductor. I work in the entertainment business. I am a producer, filmmaker, stuntman, fight choreographer. So I do a number of different things when it comes to film and entertainment. I run multiple businesses, so I'm an entrepreneur, been one since I can remember.
Literally.
Since
you're like 20.
Pretty much in my 20s. I'm a military brat. Both my parents were military, mom and dad. Dad did Vietnam, so I'm from a military family. I was basically raised in Fort Hood, but I was born in Vicenza, Italy. Lived all up and down the East Coast. Parents retired in Texas, so I claim Texas. I got cowboy hats on the wall over there, so it's fine. What else do I have to say? I'm clearly black, right?
I got your wicked black.
Yeah, I'm wicked black. I got a dash Native American in there somewhere, a little splash.
We did the 23andMe or whatever, and it was like 98% West African.
Yeah, Nigeria. Yeah. So I'm a black dude.
He's like all black.
And I've always been independent because I knew that people were trash and the government can never be trusted. And so I knew that for some reason, I knew that at a very young age. So I've always been independent, and I vote for the people that I thought made the most sense. And so if I have to line up now, I say I'm a conservative. I'm like a Republican libertarian. I'm in that little spectrum.
Republitarian.
Yeah, I'm a Republitarian, or Libertarian. About liberty. About liberty and common. Right. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's been Reddick in a nutshell.
And I am Erica Reddick, and I am really white. I'm like wicked, super duper white. I grew up in Milton, Vermont, in the previously whitest state.
Milton.
Yeah. It's Milon. There's no T. It's Milton. Milton. I am.
Milton.
What I heard was
Lil
Oz,
oh.
that Oz TV show, from the theme song.
Hey, is that Franklin County, bub?
Franklin County.
What's that?
Franklin County.
It's not Franklin. No, Milton is
No?
Chittenden County. Okay.
Oh,
Chittenden. She's a Chittenden girl through and through.
Although I
Is
did
that
graduate from
Franklin
being a
County, bub?
Fucking A right, dude. Let's go get a kegger. Put it in the back of my truck. Oh, you're not supposed to swear. I'm not supposed to swear.
No.
Don't swear. This is a kid-friendly show.
Like that.
What, you don't like my redneck accent?
No, I
We're
don't.
gonna go mud bogging.
Mm-mm.
Let's get a kegger.
It's negatory.
I got
The
a
price-
redneck.
Price of kegs are too expensive now.
And gas.
Oh my god, everything is too expensive. Okay,
All right.
so the reason I wanted to have everybody here, one of the things that I found really striking
Yeah,
early in
I'm gonna hang them right in the garage. Watch, bud.
Oh. What is happening?
It's really hard to hear James. It's not helpful.
It's just what's happening is he's freezing and coming in and out, and I think it's making it hard.
Yeah.
Like he'll say something like and it skips. Dang it. Okay.
You can mute people.
Well, I just don't know what to do.
Just go.
Okay. So one of the things that I remember really distinctly was well, actually, let's start with this. Everyone raise your hand if you started out more like a Democrat or like a liberal, whatever,
I guess you can say that.
right? Like something like
Left.
that, more like a left
Yeah.
of center. Okay. So you've always been pretty independent. Michael, I imagine if your family came from a place where there was a communist takeover and people were dying and all that awful stuff was happening, that they're very anti that.
Yeah, we were definitely anti-genocide, like many people are in general.
Wow.
I would safely say you all are as well.
Yes.
It's pretty simple. So I was definitely anti-genocide growing up, and I still am today.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
Surprisingly,
Yeah, I've
Beautiful
maintained that
thing.
belief. We should not kill other people for no reasons at all. And I think for many Asian American immigrants and the generation they raised, I was apathetic to politics. It wasn't that I was really anything. I was just my parents and therefore in my generation were pretty much apathetic or quiet and not really didn't pay attention because it was about working. Like it was for my parents, it was about establishing a life for their kids here, me and my siblings, and really putting their heads down and ignoring a lot of the things that they went through. In hindsight, I look back and go, wow, you went through a lot of challenges and racism and a bunch of other stuff, but you kind of just stayed quiet and didn't really engage. And so and a lot of older Asian American immigrants and refugees, they were all this, they basically have that kind of common shared experience of it was hard enough to just kind of establish American life. And so engaging in politics when you left a country where engaging in politics meant possibly dying or killing somebody. I think most of my parent generation decided we don't want anything to do with that.
Well,
right?
and it's
So it's a different
interesting.
perspective. Yeah.
It's interesting too. It's similar, not the same, but I remember hearing that, like, as an example, my dad's first language was French, but it was frowned upon to speak French or do things like that when he was a kid. Like you were supposed to try to be an American and you needed to be as American as you possibly could be. And you were supposed to set a lot of those other things aside.
Yes.
Was it like that for them as well?
Yeah, it was, in order to become American and succeed, it was, a lot of Asian Americans, decided to assimilate as best as possible and encouraged me and my siblings to assimilate. I wasn't born with an American name. I was born with the Chinese given name. But then before high school, my mother thought it'd be wise for me to choose an American name to make the education experience a lot better. And it did, honestly.
Easier.
I mean, to be very frank, it was very honest. Teachers were a lot less afraid to call on me because my name is Michael, right? From high school on. So it changes your education experience when your teacher actually calls your name.
Oh my gosh.
And you're able to answer questions. Yeah.
Do they just like get too afraid to say the wrong thing so they just don't call on you?
Well, I mean, I've never been a teacher, so I don't know. I can imagine if you were one of the first Chinese kids in your school growing up and you're a teacher and you're like, I don't know how to say this name. Why would you want to say it regularly?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just being
So
honest. I'm like, it's just so uncomfortable. Why would you want to mispronounce it regularly?
Yeah.
Like, so, and I think today it's very different because more people are used to multicultural classroom and cross-cultural kids. But you're talking about the 80s and 90s. In the 90s, I was in high school in the 90s and in middle school, and it wasn't like that. It wasn't like the classes rooms were filled with multicultural students and names. So, an exotic name was like Frank or something like that, like.
So was it like that, Olga? If you grew up in New York City, what was it like? I think we're all actually around the same age, like 40s, late 30s. I could be speaking out of turn, but what was it like for you? Oh, that's right, Dan. Oh, Danielle's a little older, isn't she?
Yeah,
you don't look it though. That's what counts.
I'm refined.
Yes.
So, Olga, what was it like for you growing up in New York City? I imagine it was a lot more multicultural because I know, like your experience, you were with a lot of more mixed race being on the military base. What was it like in New York?
It's funny because I was born in 74. So when I was growing up in New York, I grew up in Queens. I didn't grow up in a Hispanic, quote unquote, neighborhood. I grew up in an immigrant neighborhood, but it was primarily immigrants from Greece, Italy, Irish kids. So when my family moved there, when we were living there, we were kind of like this first wave of Latinos in that particular neighborhood. It was Astoria. And now if you go to Astoria, it's like everybody. So I was a pioneer in that sense. But so it was really difficult. And we did, I remember they would throw, because my mom was from Puerto Rico, I remember there were kids that would throw like dirty magazines in our backyard, because the association was that a Puerto Rican woman was a prostitute. So it was crazy. And like my brother would, want to beat up the kids. And my mom was like, no. So there was a little bit of that because they grew up seeing and hearing just all the stereotypes. And then you have like, this Hispanic family living. We eventually all just kind of like became friends and got over it. Like we'd have little spats once in a while. And then, like the little racial epithets would come out when you'd fight with your friends. And then you'd make up and then you'd go, climb a concrete wall and run around the streets and whatever. But it was a really interesting time. And then just as time went on, it did, by the time I was in elementary school, I noticed just like because I went to Catholic school. So the Hispanic population in the Catholic school and other immigrant, it was all immigrant kids, but some of them were like second or third generation, like Italian or Irish. But the Hispanic population started getting a little bit bigger because a lot of times, and these are all working class families, but they really valued making sure their kids had that Catholic education that was possible in the United States. It wasn't necessarily even possible in the home countries that some people came from. So it was even like, wow, we get the opportunity to send our kids to a Catholic school. That was interesting.
Well, and I know.
Well, so one, when you said you were from Queens, I'm thinking, okay, so you grew up and your life was like that movie, The Heights, that's coming out. It's just Spanish people everywhere just dancing and music.
West Side Story a little bit, actually.
You missed out on all of that. You didn't get any of that action. So I feel bad for you.
Sad.
No, it was great. It was a great experience. When I got older and I ventured out into like other neighborhoods that were like Hispanic, that's where I spent a lot of time growing up because I didn't have that right in my immediate childhood, but that was a good thing for me that it was like that.
Yeah.
But also, you said something that's really interesting that we talk about a lot especially when you're like in military towns. We all insult each other like a lot. It's fun. That's just you do the dozens and you pick the obvious thing and you go in. So when you said when you get angry, people would say stuff. It's like, did you perceive those people from that point on as racist, or did you say he was mad, she was mad, they said the thing that they thought would hit the hardest? And
right,
like how did you look at that when you heard those things?
Yeah, I never and by the way, I mean, these are people that I still know and I love dearly. So I just in that moment, it really does hurt. But then I think of the thing that you say to an Italian kid or the Irish kid or whatever, just to get back. But it wasn't oh, you're a hurtful racist person. It was damn, man, they had to say the thing that they were really mad. And I was really, and they said the thing that was, and there was worse things, by the way, that we said to each other. The racial word wasn't even the worst thing we would say. It was just it would get thrown in there. Oh, you're a spick. But there was even worse stuff that they could say that really hurt my feelings more. It was just really, you're gonna go there? That's what we're doing.
Well, and that's one.
But we'd play the next day. We'd be playing like nothing happened because we're resilient.
It's one of the things, Danielle, I can't remember if we talked about this one-on-one before or not, but I remember asking that very question, are you sure the person is racist, or are they just looking for the thing to get your goat? Especially as women in a male-dominated industry, not just in entertainment, but you were in finance. And I remember you saying you had some issues being a woman, you had some issues being Black. And I just know, from my experience, that people are going to get after you and give you crap for whatever it is they think that they can give you crap about, right? Especially if you're in a highly competitive environment. So do you feel like what you experienced was sexism or racism, or do you think it was just people being asshole? Oh my God, I don't know how to not cuss. Do you think it was just people being jerks? Or do you think it was really an attack on you as a person? How do you perceive those experiences?
It depends on the experience. So in that experience at that major corporation at that time was a racist situation. They did not want a Black female in a position of power. And they certainly, so if somebody tells me Austin is old white money, they're not going to want you to be, oh yes, blatant. And Georgetown, they'll be really uncomfortable with you approaching their homes. So that's strictly, yeah. So that's racist. And being hired and saying we're going to hit two birds with one stone. So when I came on to that whole situation, I saw the opportunity. So, so I saw an opportunity for me to get in the door to do what I wanted to do, to get the credentials behind me, right? And so, but I knew when they said, we're going to hit two birds with one stone, you're Black and you're a female.
Wow.
I'm like, I know what you're doing, but I know what this company is worth and what I can do in my meantime. Mind you, it was a lot of stuff. But in that situation, being that first in that environment, in 1995, being the first in that environment, which is way behind the curve in this particular environment here. That was clearly, they did everything possible to not allow me to get to where I was supposed to go. I eventually got what I wanted, but there was a lot of heartache in between that. And I pulled other people along with me to give them opportunities. But yeah, no. So yes, in that situation, that's a racist situation. Are there people, I lived right around the corner when I was younger. I was known for a Ku Klux Klan Grand Dragon, right? And I would fight. I used to, I might look like this, right? But I fought with you. If there was, I was a bully a little bit to some people when they were weak and it was family situational, but I would fight against racists a lot, if somebody just to protect people, my family or friends. So, but it's funny because the kids, we were friends. We were friends. Yeah. The kids. So you would duke it out, and then you would make up, because that's a taught situation. You realize where it's really ingrained, and how much they take in, and what life experiences might change that as time goes on. So
well, and isn't that we had that experience? Can I say? We'll just say a family member.
Okay.
That used to be racist, maybe kind of.
Oh,
should I say that?
You should not. You don't have to tell anybody's names.
Okay, so we have a family member. I have a family member, and I have a mixed race family. Every one of my dad's siblings basically married someone who is Mexican, so their kids are Mexican. Like we have, like they all grew up in Colorado, so we have a lot of that, and like just various things in the family. And there was a time where one member of my family said to me, "Oh, I'm surprised so-and-so didn't say anything to you." And I said, "What do you mean?" "Oh, well, that person is really, really racist against Black people." And I was like, how can they be? What do you mean what do you mean that person is racist? I can't tell the story without like revealing something. The person's spouse is not white. What? And it's like, oh, well, he can be racist against Black people, but not other people. And I just remember being like, I thought like people were just like supremacists. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm like, if I'm white, I just think I'm better than everybody else. Or if I'm Black, I think Black people are better than everybody else.
No, you can have specific.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Okay. So say more about that, Michael.
Well, I mean, I mean, racism's everywhere.
Tell us who you were racist against, Michael.
Racism are everywhere. So you can have racist views and not think you're racist, but you can have completely racist views. I was going to comment earlier, like, honestly, why does it matter if it's anger or being a jerk and you don't think it's racist? Like, no, it's the same thing. It's like it's racism. And whether or not you think it is has nothing to do with it, whether it is or not. Whether you think it isn't, right? I'll give you I went and got my shot, and I'm out in Arizona with family right now. I went and got my first shot at the Cardinal Stadium, and so we went up to the line. We were at the end of the line to get our shot, and the lady, we rolled down the window with my wife, and we have our 3 kids with us, and the first thing that the woman says, and we have our masks on, right, to get our shots. First thing the woman says is, "Hey, is this?" She sees our kids. Are these your kids? She says this to my wife, my white wife. "Are these your kids?" We're like, she's like, "Yeah, all of them are our kids." And then she's like, "Oh," and I'm just like, it's like she's running some stuff through her head. And then she looks, she says to my wife, "Is he Korean?" Like, she's talking about me. I'm sitting in the passenger seat. She's talking about me.
Wow.
She's talking about me. I'm like right there. Like, you can ask me that question. So
like,
says,
I can't speak English.
Yeah. What did you think?
Wow.
Like, is he Korean? And I'm thinking to myself, my wife's thinking, how does this have anything to do with getting our shot? Like,
yeah,
we need to be stuck in the arm and then leave. And so she says, "Is he Korean?" My wife says, "No, he's Chinese." And then she says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm usually good at this. I watch foreign films." Okay. So here's the question. Was she trying to be, was she a racist? I don't know. Why does that matter? Like, you just don't say those things.
Right. It's
rude.
Like, she was trying to guess at what your nationality was?
Through his mat, through
my eyes. Through my eyes or mask. Or like, why does this matter for what the activity we're going through right now? I'm probably the 1,000th shot you're giving today.
Wow.
Why does it? Do you do this with everybody? Like, I'm sitting going, okay.
I bet she does.
She does.
Yeah, I have no idea. And then,
well, maybe like Vermont, they want to know which race is getting, the vaccine. They want to check it off.
No, she's not checking anything. She's just given the shot. That's her job.
She was like, "Is he from Thailand?" Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, she's like, oh, got that.
Check.
Have we gotten all countries on the globe on
Right.
our
All the
COVID
BIPOC.
vaccine?
Well,
Yeah,
and
like
it's
I don't get it.
We've had stuff, not the same thing. That's pretty messed up. But there'll be times where we're out somewhere, like on a film set or something, and I'll be like, "Oh, my husband," and I'll point in a general direction because maybe he's across the room, and they'll be like, "Oh, the guy in the white shirt," and it's always the white person. If he's around any white people, I'm like, "Nope, the guy holding the camera. That's mine.
Yeah.
That's my husband. That one's mine."
Yeah.
And it's people get so awkward. We had a church that we like to attend in Williston or South Burlington. I don't remember what that part of town is. The pastor's wife is Puerto Rican, and the pastor is a ginger. He's blonde or a ginger. And she said that, and their kids are all like blonde or whatever. And so she's been basically asked if she was the help or referred to as the help when she's out with her kids.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Not
And
nice.
That's real rough. That's rough.
Well, and so this is the thing. So obviously there is racism, there is prejudice, there is just plain stupid people. I mean, I can't believe that. I don't want to say I can't believe that happened to you, Michael, because you just go, there's no way people can be that.
That's just rude.
Like
Well, and then she came over to my side to give me my shot. Right, she gave my wife the shot. I was holding my wife's hand when my wife got her shot, so I kept holding her hand. She gave me my shot. I wasn't looking at her. She says, "Oh, is he crying?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm crying." My mother says I'm crying. I hold my wife's hand, and she goes. She begins to do an Asian accent of a mom to me, reacting my mom. Yeah,
That's so
and of course you're sitting there like, this lady has control of whether or not I get a shot. I am not going to say anything, right? Like, it's like, just give me a shot. But you're sitting there going,
people.
We need a show just on that.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay.
I would not have kept my cool at all. We would have had a full blown conversation.
This is just
I would have
like
halted the
terrible.
line. We would have had a chat.
Yeah. Like, do you not know what Asian Americans are going through right now? Do you not understand? I'm just trying to get a shot and move on. You don't need to say anything to me. Just help make this situation more comfortable. And I think just that people are just, like you said, racist, ignorant, dumb, whatever it is.
That was stupid.
Sorry.
That's straight out stupid.
The first nose, and maybe she's being ignorant and doesn't realize this is going to come off weird with it. If I could guess what you are, because I know people who've said things like, which country? Oh, I thought you were this, that, and this, whatever. But that story just got progressively worse.
So bad.
When you're ahead.
Put the shovel down, man.
Put the shovel down. It really is. So this is one of the things that, like, I think is so interesting. It's like, if you acknowledge and admit that racism exists, it means you must be a Democrat. And or you must be on the left of center, which I think is really weird. And Michael, I know you've got to go a little bit early tonight, so I want to make sure we get this story in, because when you told me this, I was like, shut up. That did not happen. Like, you have the dumbest stories of anybody that I know.
What story? Because I want to hear it.
Okay. So tell folks what you experienced, the lie that got spread about you.
Oh, right.
For when you ran for House Rep in Burlington, because you ran as a Republican, right?
Yeah, I ran as a Republican, and I had a great mentor in Burlington that pretty well known Republican politician in Burlington. And so I mean, honestly, I ran because I'd never been asked to run before, right? Like, I thought that was something white people did, not that they ran for office. I didn't think something that people that weren't white did. I mean, I didn't know. I didn't know until I was asked. Like, you don't know until you're asked, and so you're asked. It was great.
That's cool.
Yeah, and Vermont's unique. It's a door-to-door. It's a more retail political environment. So I remember running. This was back in 2014, and then it was near the end of the race. It was almost to election day, and I had a really great chance of winning. And I remember going to a door of somebody, and he identified as as homosexual, and he was left leaning, but I didn't know him, he didn't know me, but we got to a door and he said to me, "Hey, I've never met you, but I have something I need to ask." And I was like, "What?" "Oh, okay. What is it?" And he goes, "Well, your opponent is going around and her volunteers, and they're telling people that before you ran for office, you created a pill to change homosexuals into heterosexuals." And I was like, "What?" And it was so strange, and I was like, "Well, what?" I was like, "You literally have been told that?" And he's like, "Yeah." And what's odd too, what's even stranger is that he wanted to ask if that was true. Okay, if I actually had created a pill that did that. And I was like, okay, first off, like the fact that somebody would believe a pill like that exists is very odd. That's very weird. It's like, so
as a homosexual male, I'm surprised that
If
you would.
you're a homosexual male, I would think you would have heard of that.
Right.
but yeah, but like it just doesn't exist. Like that pill doesn't exist. So it's
Or
like
denied its
common
efficacy.
sense.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like saying, "Hey, do you have a pill? You have a cure for cancer?" Like it doesn't exist. Like it's
Yes.
it's an obvious
Yes, I do.
it's an obvious statement. Like it does
That's
not
obviously
exist.
a lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't even know why you're asked, but it's like, "Hey, do you have that?" And I'm going, "Wow." And you know what? I only lost the race by 30 points, by 30 votes. So 16 votes. So imagine 16 voters going, "Well, we don't know this, Michael. I heard this, and this fits into this category of, weird Republicans. So maybe it's true. Maybe he did have one, and he's got it." Yeah.
Wow.
Do you think that was because you're a Christian? Do you think
It could be a
like,
variety of reasons. It could be a variety of reasons. It could be because I grew up Christian. It could be that I actually have, nuanced beliefs. It could be that I'm just new. Could be that I'm Asian and I'm smart. I don't know. Like
and you're a math Asian.
yeah, and I can develop pills. I mean, like that's an absurd thing to say about somebody.
Wow.
And so
That was amazing.
but yeah.
Yeah.
Just enough, dude, you just dropped just enough of that, like, well, there's enough doubt there.
Reasonable
Might as
doubt.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit of doubt,
Well, and that's what we experienced when we moved to Los Angeles in 2017. I wasn't even really a conservative yet. Like I had gotten saved. I became Christian. I was doing the walk with Jesus, trying all that stuff, working it out. And we moved to LA for film stuff. So we're right in the middle of Hollywood. And we got invited to the next door neighbor's party. And I've told this story before. And they said, this guy said something like, "Oh, all conservatives are white supremacists."
Yeah.
But I was starting to identify as conservative.
Standard dinner talk, right?
Yeah. And so I looked at Mino. He was standing. I said, "Did you hear that, honey? We're white supremacists." Oh my God.
You made it.
Do your thing.
Yeah.
You made it.
We made it. We made it.
Success.
And we got discriminated against. So we start, we tell a joke, which clearly they didn't think was funny. And then, I don't know if we talked about like religion or politics or whatever during the course of the rest of the party, but not only did we not get invited back to any neighborhood gatherings after that, our neighbors in our building literally would just like walk past without saying anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
So curious with that. What color of the skin were they that kept walking past you? Were they black people?
They
were
were white.
So
the very inclusive white people were ignoring and not speaking to their black neighbor because he had beliefs that they didn't agree with.
Yes.
So that's real weird. It's real weird how people who are, Black Lives Matter and like fight for me. Right.
Yeah.
But you won't speak to me. That's just it's weird.
That is very weird.
And that's Michael. I imagine that was the same with your experience as well. It was the well-meaning white liberal folks in Burlington spreading that. I'm assuming your opponent was not another non-white person.
No, yeah, no, she was not another non-white person. Yeah, exactly.
And then somebody in our neighborhood, because for anybody that doesn't know, Michael and I live in the same neighborhood, or we live in the same neighborhood. It was a black woman said that my husband must have internalized the white supremacy to be married to me and be a conservative.
I want to be clear about a couple of things, and this is the fun part. I was more conservative than Erica was when we met. So I affected her more in that way than she affected me. So that's stupid.
Yeah.
First of all. Second of all, if you want to see me lose like all of my class in an instance, and you want to turn this into a game with the dozens, talk about how I've internalized white supremacy. At that point, we're not having a debate. I'm going to drag you for the next however long you're willing to talk to me, and I'm going to embarrass you.
Yeah,
because that is a stupid statement, and it's very offensive, especially hearing it from another black person. So that's fun times, always fun times.
And
well, everybody, I apologize ahead. I have to get going, but
thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah,
pleasure meeting you.
Thank you all. We'll talk soon.
Wonderful.
All right.
Yeah.
I got to talk to you, Mike, so I'm going to holler at you.
Yeah, we'll talk.
All right.
I was just going to say that's been my experience here, is that it wasn't the, Trump supporter, the quote unquote redneck people who were, oh, you're Puerto Rican, or oh, you're this. It was the supposed progressives who were, and who are like, we are allies in this and that, who are really behaved racist. Like they, they literally did this, did racist things. And a lot of it is, it's just this, it's this weird, and again, like when we were I think we were talking before we were on, it's this weird, it's paternalistic. Like, I know what's best for you. You don't have the intelligence to get a photo ID to identify yourself to vote. You don't know how to do these things. You don't understand history. So you don't understand like how you're oppressed. You don't understand your own life experience. Like, let me explain it to you. I see these all the time. I have these dialogues all the time of people who want to like explain, well, you shouldn't really support the Second Amendment because blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, why would I want to defend myself?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
oh, that's akin to white supremacy. Really? Because
the first people to get guns taken away from them were freed slaves.
That's exactly right.
That's why all gun control is racist. Yeah. And when you say that, people lose their minds because it just contradicts so much.
I've talked to people who are black because I have 2A hat over there. I'm an NRA, NAAGA. I'm in both of them. I've had conversation. I'm an NRA and the NAAGA, so both two different gun groups. And what's funny is that I talk to people who are black, and they'll say things like, you can't carry a gun because you'll get shot. And I'm like, well, I've had a lot of interactions with cops. I've had weapons interactions with cops where I had a weapon or something at least 4 or 5 different times. A couple of those were film sets where we had fake weapons, but they looked real. And so we had made a mistake actually when we first started. Nobody ran up on me with guns. It was a normal conversation. It wasn't so like when people say you're going to get killed, you're going to get shot. I'm like, well, one, I did security and I was an armed guard. I was an armed federal agent. And in addition to that, right, I've had these interactions already and I never got shot. And I've hardly ever had bad interactions with cops. So I understand that things happen, but to say that every single time it's going to go back. And for that reason, in a world where you're telling me everyone hates me and wants to kill me because they're white supremacists.
Right. Why am I going to be defenseless?
Tell me to disarm myself. Like that, those don't even make any kind of sense. And I have to have these arguments with like black dudes. And I'm like, how long does it take the cops to get to your house?
You have to have these arguments. What is the argument that you have to have with the black dudes? What
about whether or not we should be armed?
Be armed? Oh.
A lot of people say because you're black you shouldn't carry, and I'm like,
Second Amendment.
No, you should have the choice to carry, and one one of those things I started paying attention to as I got older was I noticed that a lot of my friends when I was younger, their parents being teachers, some of them, but and just different levels of people, and some of them being in politics as well. I noticed that I was the only Black person maybe around them, and within their as they moved up the ladder, and even to today, these some of the same people that are certain that are very liberal. Their children don't really. They may have one Black kid, but they mainly do not. They're none of their community. They don't really reach out to help. But they will voice their opinion about what Black people should do, or what Puerto Rican, what any minority group should do, and how they should think, and what they
or
should
how
do,
they're supposed to feel.
and the programs. Yes, but they're not even in my neighborhood right now. It's the same thing. It's I'm noticing certain people that are very liberal leaning, but they're not having. I'm the Black neighbor, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, they still have their cliques. I'm not necessarily involved. I'm okay with not being invited to certain places. I'm good with that. It's not what it's about. But it's about, if you say something, how are you really showing that interaction and that change that you purport to truly a Black Lives Matter type of thing for somebody like me and other people. So does that make sense?
The media, and the media has done a really good job of telling people what a Black man or a Black woman or a Latin man or a Latin woman or Asian are supposed to think, are supposed to feel. And I'm like, you don't know what I went through. You don't know how that stuff affected me. I can tell you exactly why I'm libertarian. I could show you the steps that got me where I am. And so one of the interesting things about what Olga said about the allies is that I had an interaction when I think it was David Dorn or one of those cops, it was like a Black guard.
Yeah, that was his name.
He got killed during the Black Lives Matter riots.
Older man. Yeah.
Right. And so one of those, when he passed, I had posted about it, does his life matter too? And we're going back and forth and back and forth. And this guy is telling me, he said his life doesn't matter because he's a race traitor. And I was like, what? This is a white guy who considers himself an ally. Right.
Well, and
hold on, I'm explaining what happens. And so we get into this debate, and I'm like, so my Black life only matters when I believe what you think I'm supposed to believe. Right. Like that sounds like slavery to me.
That sounds like plantation. Let me tell you when you have to be and think the way you need. Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It used to be that you were called an N-word or you were called less than or subhuman or whatever because you didn't agree with them. You didn't accept your place or whatever. And now that it's different and you won't accept your place, you're an Uncle Tom, you're a race traitor, you're an Oreo, you're a whatever. And so it's like, it's still the same people. It's still the Democrats calling Black people names. They're just different names for you're not a human being because you don't agree with what I have to say.
Yes. Yeah.
You're not obeying.
I'm going to repost that video that I did. The one of Ami Horowitz doing the man on the street, talking to people about getting a license. And they're like, oh, well, Black people don't know how to use the internet, don't know how to use technology, and they can't get an ID. So I spliced that together with the Lincoln Douglas debates. Stephen Douglas talking about how, white people have a duty and responsibility to take care of the lesser N-word.
Yes, and we are the less, yes.
I could say that other kind of version of the word, but it doesn't matter. So I had a question I wanted to ask Olga, and now I can't remember what it was. So for me, like, I know personally, I started to walk away from the left when, there was an infringement on my rights. And there was a bunch of stuff that was like really weird. And then when the news started lying about the crisis on the border back in 2018, when they were like, there's no crisis at the border, Trump is lying, he's a liar. And I was like, I have family that works for Border Patrol. I happen to know that is a lie. And then it just sort of all unraveled. It just kept unraveling for me. And I just turned in my liberal card. I was like, you guys are crazy. I'm done with you. So Olga, was there a specific moment that you remember being like waking up to that kind of paternalistic like actual racism from the left. Like, when did you wake up to that? What was your moment, if you had?
So let me put it like this. I was never a liberal per se, because I was so extreme left. And so when I was growing up, liberal was a very kind of center thing. So we used to make fun of liberals because we were like, oh, you guys are just like wishy-washy. What's happened over time is that
you're a Marxist, right?
Yeah,
so that means
yeah.
you
I
were
was
like
socialist, straight up,
like,
right?
all the way down the road. Okay.
Right. I was like in Utopia La La Land and thought like all these wonderful people were great. And when you know, I really appreciate Michael's testimony, because, you know, like you would hear things like that and right away, you know, have people that have kind of, you know, been in that movement for a long time. They would just kind of be like, well, that's all just propaganda and that's all made up. And you just like taught to like ignore literally what people are telling you is their experience. And I think there's a lot of that. So there's a kind of like a training in that way. So that's why I'm very kind of, I have that ear for when I hear like these extreme left communist basic like talking points. It's like, yep, I know exactly, you know, I know exactly what that is. That's that apologist. That's like that romanticizing. And really it's this kind of paternalistic. For me, I was in college and I was also just a community organizer. It just happened to be like, I had that experience where I was among a group of people that was the politics, and I was exposed to that and around that. And I thought that was great, but I was doing like a lot of positive things. Just as I got older, I just moved away from it. And I thought, you know, the Democratic Party was a joke because politicians tend to be jokes. So I was never even really like down with that. But, you know, kind of as an observer of someone who's had that like hard left experience, I see like they've just really been over time taken over. It's quite amazing to see how like 20 years ago, what you would consider a Democrat is pretty much like a Republican nowadays.
Joe
but
Manchin.
just like stepping away from that, really like one of the first things was, and I was really never down with like feminism, because I kind of saw myself as, okay, well, my parents are from Latin America and I was really like into the culture. So I saw myself in terms of just kind of like a third world thing. So like that, the mainstream feminism, the main component of that was like abortion. So like for me, just as part of my culture, that just wasn't like what women's rights was about. Women's rights when I was growing up and like in my family and the women that were around me, even like those of us who were activists, it was about getting an education. It was about having equal access, you know, if you had the experience. And so like for us, that was what women's rights was. So I was never even really down with like feminism because I was just like, y'all just care about abortion. And even to the point where I've seen examples where they were so willing to throw Black and brown women under the bus as long as they can have abortion be the main topic, the main thing. So like I could never vibe with that. So like for me, women's rights was something separate of feminism. So it's just like kind of like, so even still, like I think at the end of the day, what I really was is I was just anti-establishment, and I was a critical thinker. And I was about liberty, and I was very much about like Puerto Rican independence movement, which I still support. I just feel like people have a right to sovereignty if that is what they want. And then I kind of was moving towards that in terms of like body sovereignty. And so that was kind of the first thing, like health freedom, medical, like health choice and medical freedom became a thing for me. And kind of understanding, like one of the lights that started flickering was understanding what socialized medicine means. I thought this was a fantastic idea when I was a communist, right? But socialized medicine, what I started to like put together is you don't get to choose your medicine.
Yep.
Like if I have to get a treatment, and in order to get like, you know, like you to fix my arm, I have to get vaccines that I know might hurt me. I don't have a choice in that system. And that was really like one of the first eye openers. And the second one, quite honestly, was the Second Amendment. I moved up to a rural place where I had to be responsible for my safety and my kids' safety. My kids were younger. My husband would drive, 5-6 hours to New York City to work, and I was alone. If I pick up 911, the police don't show up in 3 minutes like they did in Queens. They may take 5 hours if they're busy, like in a traffic accident somewhere else,
if
or
they
something.
come at all.
Not to say, anything bad, but that's just the reality. I mean, and we were told that by other people, it's rural, so you really have to be kind of, rely on your neighbors. But we really took seriously the idea of being self-sufficient and reliant because of this reality. And that was a mind changer, because I had no idea of that when I was living in a city. Take everything for granted.
And even being you don't even have to be rural. We had our friends had a situation. And what was the first thing you said afterwards? So tell that story.
Oh, there's a nice part of town. I actually live in this part of Austin, as a matter of fact. And nice houses, homes, families.
Yeah. There
was a shootout in the neighborhood. I mean, I don't know if it's people who live there or driving through, but it was a shootout in the neighborhood. Bullets ricocheting the whole nine. Mm-hmm. They called the cops on 2 different occasions, and the cops didn't come out there. They never came. So my friend is him, his new wife, and now they have a baby, a child, like a little baby, a little toddler. And I was like, because we used to talk about gun rights a lot, and he's very anti-gun, and I'm like, this right here is what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, and this is what I talk to all of them, this is the most brutal example I can give. But if you are, say, a man, woman, and you got a daughter, 16-year-old daughter, and these dudes bust in the house and they beat up the husband and they rape the daughter, and the cops can't get there in time because they're not going to get there. They come for an after action report.
Right.
All that happens when everything is said and done. If you could have had a gun, you could have had an alarm system. Everyone could have been capable of protecting themselves. Do you think that wife and that daughter will now feel safe with that man? Now, it doesn't matter what your politics are. At the end of the day, you are the one. Mm-hmm. Mom, dad are responsible for the safety of your home. The cops come after the fact.
Yeah.
You are responsible. So if someone's busting the house, you are the first. You are the line of defense.
Well, and that's what it was. One of those things that is so taken for granted in our culture nowadays, because masculinity, it's toxic and terrible, and we need to get rid of it. But it's like, I want to know that my man can protect me and will protect me. I want to be able to take care of myself and protect myself. But if he was I was going to say it really rudely, if he was a chump cowering in the corner and I'm the one with the gun or a machete or something like that defending us, I'm not going to see you as a man after that. And we can pretend like that's not true and, feminism, but that's not real.
It's not real.
It's not real.
Yeah.
Not real.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's Danielle, you're a big two-way advocate too, right?
I am.
So that's what I feel like. If you're to be, it's like guns is a big thread. Yeah. I think even between leftists and liberals and conservatives
all the time.
Is being that the right to life. That's number one in the Bill of Rights, right? The right to life, which means I have the right to protect myself.
Yep.
And so I don't know.
I think even more so, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think even more so for, I'm sorry, it's a delay. I think even more so for people of color, it's why if I was, and police brutality is horrible. And one of the areas when I was an activist was police brutality. It's a real thing. It was very real in New York, especially when I was growing up. And it's just kind of I think of this contradiction of you don't want to have, police interactions that are going to escalate. Police brutality is this bad thing. However, we're going to remove every individual's right to protect themselves and then become even more dependent on the police and create a police state so that they can come around and try to take everyone who has weapons to defend themselves. It's antithetical to what their own politic is even trying to say. It makes no sense.
I heard someone that said they said it was funny that how did he word it? He said, so when I said I wanted a gun, you said I didn't need one because you're going to have the cops to defend me.
Yeah.
Now you want to take my guns and you're going to take the cops away.
Right.
It doesn't make
Weird.
any sense, does it? No, not at all. No.
Because like as I say, I operate from the standard, and this is as hyperbolic as I can make it, but it's to prove the point. People are trash. They are trash. Like there are people who murder for no reason. There are people. They have all the opportunity in the world and they just want to be Jeffrey Dahmer. Like there are people who don't value other humans' lives. They're not.
That's exactly right.
Whatever the reason is, there are people who are in gangs. I know who don't have to be in gangs. They were raised middle class, but they want to do violence to people. Until you can show me how you're going to eradicate those characters, there is no way you're going to tell me that I should allow them to have Gats and Dracos and I can't have nothing. Like that doesn't make any sense at all. And I literally heard something that said somebody was arguing, you know what? You know, those people only carry guns to facilitate a more peaceable transfer of property, basically taking your stuff when they rob you. And I'm like, that's not that doesn't make me feel any more comfortable. And they're like,
nobody said that.
Someone said we shouldn't have guns.
That is not
because
true.
The criminals only have guns in order to ensure that there is no violence.
That is not a thing that somebody said.
To ensure that there is no violence necessary when they rob you. And I'm like, well, what about the murderers?
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
That's a pegging on the way the skin color piece of that as well. So, you know, putting that in a group of not seeing a particular group as valuable in first sense. So the life doesn't matter. So, you know, when I started noticing things when I was younger, but I didn't really get what they were. And what I mean by that, so my dad was an alcoholic, right? And he would pick me up from ballet and take me to the other side of town because our town was dry. And so where those liquor stores were in the poor communities. Okay. And what I started noticing as well is there's this medical facility there that when in high school, I would notice where was that medical facility for abortions? It was in those same sides of town. Where were the big billboards? In those sides of town. So like you ride through 360, down 360 in Austin, you'll never see those beautiful billboards, right? Beautiful billboards. And so when I got older, so I had about 9 friends who had abortions. And it just really messed with my head. You know, they're still my friends today. But I noticed how things changed with their mentality after they were. None of those, it's interesting, none of those women are liberal leaning now. They're all very conservative. And in fact, they're way different conservative than I am. And so I'm kind of liberal, but conservative. So, and then I started paying attention to the news and going, okay, Fifth Ward in Houston, what's going on there? Fifth Ward is really, there's a lot of violence there. And so what's going on with the programs there? Where are the liquor stores still all around that place? They're all around that place. So if you deny people an education, the schools weren't getting any better there. So you're not helping people to get better with their education. You're keeping people in a certain mentality. You're killing the babies. You still keep the parents on this trajectory of being liquored up or whatever that is. So you have this cycle. And if you're not trying to better that, which to me, pulling the police out right now, is continuing that cycle. Not allowing school choice is to continuing that cycle. Increasing abortions, you know, because Black community has the highest abortion rate. Anyway,
by far.
So by far,
that's
yes,
one of the
huge.
things that I'm like, if you say that you're for Black people and you say that the inner city schools are bad and you say that these things are terrible, how can you then also be against school choice?
Because you don't want the kids coming to your neighborhood.
And the unions.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, those are two big things.
Go. More information on that, Olga. Continue.
Yeah. So, you know, the union is the Democratic Party. So I'm from New York City, Union Town. When I was an activist, like, and, you know, again, for me, because I was so extreme left, the unions were like, oh, they're these conservative, like, you know, liberal, but like center. But what it was is that the liberals, I'm sorry, not the liberals, the unions would literally give out voter cards for their members to sign. And my husband was a member of the fire department. So they would do this. And then like they would tell you, okay, you're voting for this person. This is how it operates. I was in the teachers union for like a blink of an eye, like for a hot second. And so the unions are really these, I mean, if you want to talk about systemic anything, you look at this type of a structure.
Yeah.
The unions have so much control, right? I mean, look what's happening now. Unions are literally holding schools and parents and kids hostage because they don't want kids, they don't want the schools to rip it. Why? Because they're a politicized entity. They want to push a particular view. I mean, right now in Vermont, for Franklin County, and it's a shame the young gentleman couldn't stay on. In Franklin County, the teachers unions have someone who comes in and does like a teacher education workshop that literally tells them, do not address children as boys and girls. In Franklin County, Vermont. And this is someone who's paid by the union to do a teacher's workshop and to say, you have to use non-gender terms. Is this something that parents have a say in? Is this something that individuals have a say in of how are they going to talk to their own students who they know that they are part of the community? No, they have someone who's not part of the community come in. So I'm just saying, like, and that's just one entity. Unions are incredibly powerful and they have so much control over so many aspects. And again, like I was a hardcore leftist, so I was just like, I thought unions were like, oh, I guess they must be great. And then you look back and you're like, workers literally have no say. I have friends who are in unions and the union is like, oh, you have to vote for Bernie Sanders. And they're like, but I'm not a progressive. Well, we're supposed to vote for him because that's what our union says. Like, why is my job telling me who to vote for?
Well, and so it's so interesting. There's all these nuances that I feel like, especially people, I hate the expression people of color. It just is so irritating, as if you guys are all just one monolith. Puerto Rican and Black people are clearly exactly the same. So not white people. So we know that racism exists. We know prejudice exists, right? Yeah. We know that this is true. You've experienced it. He's experienced it. We've experienced some together. So then you also have, like, if white people move into a neighborhood, it's gentrification. If white people move out of a neighborhood, it's white flight. Like, we don't win. But then they're like, oh, but we're white. Look at us. We're the white saviors and we're here to save you. Yeah. Poor Black people can't take care of yourselves. But then, like Danielle said, but then if you try to do school choice, whether it's the union or it's, I don't want those brown kids coming to my kids' school, like, they're not really about it. Just
power.
Like they're really about what they say
they're not about what they say.
No, they don't.
About. There's a couple of examples of that.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Daniel.
Oh, I was going to say it's about power. So you keep the order. So if you break that order, then now you've messed the system up. So the system is a system. It's a structured system the way certain people want it to be.
Well, one thing is, like, for instance, if you talk about like the president and the vice president right now. Yes. Well, it's weird that white men are racist and et cetera,
the worst.
Then why is he the one that you picked to run? Why didn't you pick Kamala just off principle or Tulsi or somebody else?
To come she was to horrible, but yeah.
No, but that's exactly right. So why did
he could write that?
Go ahead, Danielle.
No, you're right. I was going to agree with. He could sit there and go, you know what? I need to relinquish my white privilege and turn it over to Kamala because we need to have equity here, and she is the person that is there now. And everybody, you know what we'll even do? We're going to put Puerto Ricans, we're going to put Chinese, we're going to put everything else, everywhere else, and everybody that's in Congress right now that's white. You need to step aside because this is not fair anymore. Because we've been ruling for so long. We need to let that go.
Well, also the part being, when you talk about when you want to help someone do anything,
yes,
you aren't the one that's supposed to be leading that. For instance, if you're trying to fix Black communities and all that stuff, then you can't have a white savior. You can come in and support some stuff, but you got to get behind people in the community so that community becomes strong and capable. And so what you're talking about, Daniel, is it's the exact same thing that you're talking about. They're saying they want to do all this stuff, but somehow they still end up with the money and the power.
But you know what's You know what's really interesting about, now that you brought up the president and the vice president, is that this is the amazing manipulation of this whole narrative, right? I remember, first of all, when there was no like proper Democratic primary, right? These people were selected. What's really interesting is I remember during the election, there was like this meme and people were like, wear your shoes because the ceiling is broken, right? Because somehow she broke a glass ceiling. And I thought, this is such an incredible manipulation, because you can't tell me this isn't like racism, because basically you're saying that a woman of color who has a horrific record in her
Turning people away, yeah,
which is why she wasn't even like in the top 3 during the primary. She was like dead last, I think.
She didn't even make it to the primary.
She was dead last.
Yeah. She didn't even make it to the first primary.
Right. Someone who laughed when they were like asking her about like the people, the black men that she allowed to go to that were on death row because she wouldn't allow evidence. The Innocence Project did a whole thing about her. I mean, she's horrific to black men specifically. And then we're supposed to look at her like she's an icon of black women or women of color. It's insane. But again, it's just like that, to me, that's racism. Because you're trying to say that the color of her skin is supposed to mean something, but her character and her history is erasable.
Yeah.
Yes, the way a lot of people look at that situation right now that supported Biden and Kamala is that this is her chance to rectify that she has an opportunity to turn things around. Ooh. So that's what is.
That's the narrative.
That's what I hear. That's the narrative. So let's get behind that narrative. And if it's going to be that narrative, then the narrative should flip exactly like where we started with this conversation with that. Then allow the narrative to take place the way it was pitched the whole time, which we know is not true.
So this is, I always thought it was really funny when she said that, people would be like, why do you think it is that you didn't make it to the primary? And she was like, I just don't think I don't think voters are ready for a black woman or whatever. And it's like, so Democrats are racist. Got it. Just want you just make sure we're going on record that you're saying that your voters on the left are racist. I just want to make sure that goes on record.
Well, wait, hold on. Dion, what's up? JT, Mary.
Oh my God, JT, you're ridiculous. If you're still watching the stuff.
JT, the meme lord.
JT Dodge said, hi, Olga. Too much. You're too much.
You're doing a lot.
If you want to come on my program and do memes for my show, I would love it. I would happily have you post for me.
You have to have him talk to you about the climate stuff.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
That's his area.
We won't even get in there.
Ray said hi, but also Ray said, do you have to be white to classify as a supremacist? Anybody have an opinion on that? Oh, no. Oh, there it is.
So do you know, did you hear racist stuff from people that you were around growing up, like Puerto Rican people, black people?
Oh my God.
All the time. Black people in private are very entertaining and often hyper racist.
My grandmother did not like white people. But she looked like she's white, but she didn't like white people.
There's people, I mean, especially, the Hispanic community, it's so multiracial. Like in one family, you can have someone who's blonde hair, blue eyes, and someone who looks like your husband. And they can be first cousins. Mm-hmm. So there's all types of stuff. There were within families where there would be a preference for a dark-skinned child, or there would be a preference for the light skin, and you would hear things like, and mind you, being of the same ethnicity, well, I don't like that person because you want to make sure you marry someone who looks like this so that your kids will look like that. I mean, there's all types of sick stuff that we have in our family. And I mean, I was gonna, and like I grew up in Queens, so like I have a lot of Asian friends. Like it's the same. Like he was saying like ethnic Chinese. There's different ethnicities in among Chinese people. So like if you brought a girl home, like if a boy brought a girl home and it was like from a different, like that wasn't happening. Let alone inter-Asian, like a Chinese and Korean. Like it's still difficult. So there's so much things. This is just part of what's being human.
Black people too. There used to be the light skin, the dark
colorism,
skin, type of thing. I was called white girl because I spoke a certain way,
Oh, yes.
the educated thing,
Well,
so
and what was the saying that
My
your
mom
used to say?
said, if she can't use my comb, don't bring her home.
How funny. That's bad.
Yeah,
That's
I've
me.
never listened to
There are
anything
so
that
many
she had
sayings.
to say in reference to any of that, but she did have a strong opinion about that particular
She
part.
wanted a certain hair texture, huh? Okay.
I was like, that's just not, I'm not picking that way.
The good hair type of thing, So you know what I have to say, when I was growing up, and it still happens. There is something to if people touch my hair. I don't like people touching my hair.
That's just rude.
It's
I
just
like-
like
Okay, wait, hold on though. Wait. Okay,
Here we
this
go.
is no.
This
I
is
gotta ask this question. I'm so glad this came up. Okay,
yes.
we are human beings are tactile. Okay, like first
Yeah,
for me
but
personally,
I'm not a monkey, man. No, but keep going.
but like I
No.
mean, I've almost gotten kicked out of the MoMA in San Francisco for touching something. Like real talk.
You have to ask, don't just touch.
Right.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm like. You see babies, right? And they touch everything. And human beings, like that's one of our senses. That's how we experience things. And I just think it looks really cool. And I'm like, oh my God, that is so. I want to like touch things. I want to touch things that look like they're a texture that I haven't touched before.
Well, there's a difference with that approach. One, you're asking, I hope, to do
Well,
that.
first
But
of
the
all,
other thing,
I'd say
nah,
obviously.
people
But
got
I do that even to white people.
your
who
hair,
have, like,
your
really pretty
texture
hair,
is
or curls, or
no, man. People texture. How did you get that? It feels kind of like mine. I'm already seen completely as different. As I'm not a human in a sense. It's kind of weird. And you see me something other than
Exotic.
well,
in a way.
yeah, but not to me.
Right.
Well, it's something that is almost animalistic. Like I'm an animal. How does your dog? That's what I would feel when people would do that type of thing.
Okay, well, first of all, you never touch another human being without asking permission first.
Yeah.
That is just.
Well, you should, yeah.
I mean, that is just obvious. But why do you think? Because this is one of these questions I've always had. Because I know for me, it's completely innocent. I just think things are cool. I like touching things. I'm a very tactile person. We're human beings. That's a sense. It's a thing. And so I've always wondered why people get so offended by it.
Because in this same thing, I would always also hear with some of these same people, I would also hear, Danielle, we don't think of you as Black. That's because the way I talk or whatever, because they already had a certain way they thought that Black people were. And being around me throws that in a loop. And then, oh, I'm curious, which is normal. I'm curious about the other stuff about you that we don't know about. Am I learning and then learning a little bit and then I compartmentalize you again? It's those same people.
It's one of those things like now it's really offensive if you ask people where they're from and like, no, like, where are you really from? Like, what is your race?
I've gotten that, right.
That's like super offensive now.
Yeah.
But it used to be,
it doesn't bother me, but
I'm really curious. Like, I want to know about you. I want to know about your history. I want to know, is that part, like, is your race a part of your culture? Like, do you do anything with it? Does it mean anything for you? Because I really like people and I'm really curious and interested. So it's like, if you ask questions, you're a racist, but if you don't ask questions, then you're a racist.
Well, but white people, you guys, as we talked about in the previous podcast, you guys aren't going to be able to win. So what you guys got to understand is that, like, just give all that up, right? You got to get some principles and just be prepped down a hill, because right now there is no flow chart where you get to not racist and you're good. It doesn't matter how you do this. That's not.
I disagree with that, and let me tell you why. Because let's talk about corporate interests, right?
Okay.
So a lot of the corporations are not run by minorities, right? And the interest in helping people of color to grow their businesses or become more visible in entertainment or whatever that is happening a whole lot. But who is still going to be the heads of these industries?
Got it.
So that narrative is going to go only for so long. until something else, I believe, unless people really completely take advantage of all of that, which I'm helping my company to look different because it's an opportunity at this time in history.
Yeah.
But certain people are still going to be the runners of the NFL, major entertainment companies, politicians, Nike. That narrative is changing. It's becoming a certain way overseas right now. It's not going to be African Americans to me. So I would say that they still win, and I still think I think people need to pay attention and begin to coordinate a little bit better and have conversation and really talk about what that means. But be aware that the same people that were controlling the interests are not gone.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean, Ben.
Yeah.
I think I'm sorry. I think that's such an important point, because just kind of talking a little bit from earlier of what we were talking about in terms of I guess woke and people who are the white allies and feel they're they're so progressive. But when corporations are using the same slogans as you, political slogans as you, you're not on the side of what you think. You're not on the side of real human progress. I mean, corporations and governments have co-opted the quote-unquote what we're good at. I mean, there are definitely good things of leftism. There were positive things of what we understand as liberalism, free speech, freedom to express yourself, human rights, people's rights, just all of those things, those, anti-war. Where's the anti-war left? They're gone. They're not here anymore. But those things have been co-opted by corporations and the big government, but it's just all talk. And so just so much of even some of, I love that we're just even talking about some of the nuanced things about just even the interpersonal stuff. I rail when I see people on social media that are all white people are racist. I'm no, I rebuke that to the pit of hell. They are not. That is horrible. Don't accept that. All that is trying to do is to divide us and to keep us just completely unaware of who the real powers of be are. You can have you can have faces, but all you're doing is just trying to divide people. You're not trying to create anything. You're not trying to solve anything. It's just rhetoric and anger, and it doesn't do anything positive.
Yeah. And that's my point. That is my point. What is Erica going to do to prove to the viewers out there who don't know her that she's not racist? How does she do that?
She doesn't have to.
That's my point. Exactly. So you find principles and you die on that hill. I'm not going to apologize for marrying a white person.
Right.
As you should not.
If they say, how can someone had a question, my friend said, can you be pro-black and be married to a white person? I said, absolutely yes.
Yes.
Depending on what you think being pro-black is. If you're talking about black businesses trying to support minorities, absolutely you can do those things.
Yep.
And so do I have to prove to anybody that I'm pro-black? No, because if you don't think I am, I don't care what you think, and you're stupid. And I'm going to do what I think makes sense. And that's my point. I pick the principle that I think makes sense, and I know I'm doing the right thing, and the people around me know I'm doing the right thing. And then whatever happens out here is whatever happens out here. And I want to make this clear, because this is actually something that happened to us.
Yeah.
Ballistic Blade, our company, got accused of being a boys' club, that we didn't listen to women's opinions when we first started, which is interesting. It was somebody's girlfriend. It was a whole situation that happened. But if someone says that to me, oh, well, Ben's being a misogynist and he doesn't care about women, it's well, in my other company, half the board are women.
Yeah, they are.
The people that he actually counts on the most.
Yeah, they are.
Exactly, right? And so I don't have to take the time to argue with idiots about whether or not I'm a misogynist and part of patriarchy. No, I'm going to just do me.
It's laziness. It's intellectual laziness. It's just a way to try. People, I think what I was going to say is I think because we're of like a certain generation, I think our generation, like Xers and before, there was a certain pride that you took in being resilient. When you fell down and you could have scraped your knees to the bone, you gonna just keep going. You wanted just to keep going, and it there was a sense of pride in being a resilient person. So like even if you did have a negative confrontation with another person, it was like you weren't gonna let it phase you. You were just gonna keep going forward. Like of course it would hurt you, but you weren't gonna let that stop you.
No, it fuels you.
Yes. And I think that some things happened where there's a lot of, and I mean, I remember when I was the young person on the block, but there's something where like, there's just resilience is not there. And people want to take, I mean, you literally have people saying words are violence. No, they're not. It's like, like you can't even like listening or reading to or seeing someone who has a view or an understanding contrary to their own is like, there's so much dissonance in that. And I'm just like, where's the resilience where you can just kind of have a little bit of a thick skin, but so that you're able to have a conversation that you're not so then what people revert to, I just think it's laziness, is where it's just then they attack you. Well, clearly you're a black man, but you must be a racist. You must hate yourself. Clearly, you're a successful black woman, but you just must be like, all the white people must have helped you. Like, no, there's no way that you could have done any of this on your own. It's lazy. Yeah. It's lazy.
How about I was having a conversation because I attended one of these implicit bias trainings just because I was curious how they went. And I was talking with a gal after the fact, an attorney, a very bright woman. And we were talking about some various stuff, including the class that we just had. And I said something about being a recovering alcoholic, having gone to jail and all this stuff and, whatever. And she said, well, don't you think that the reason you were able to get and stay sober is because of your skin color? And I was like, I almost lost it. I started to I couldn't believe how dismissive. I was like, you clearly don't know what it's like to get and stay sober. If you are just 100% dismissing all of the hard work that I did, all of the people that I've helped in order to help me stay sober, the hours of crying and tears and hugs and phone calls in the middle of the night from sponsees. And like, you just dismissed everything.
All of it. And then what you're doing now with your life and moving forward and all the gifts that you've probably changed lives.
It's only because of my skin color.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, so black people can't succeed because of their skin color. And I've only been successful because of my skin color. Yes. And like, it can't just be that hard work, dedication, personal responsibility, resilience, that these are the things, these are the markers of successful people.
So are black people not being sober? Right? Like, what are you saying? Only white people could, like, I don't, that's.
Oh, yes, exactly.
It would be so much harder for me to get sober if I was being a black person. I don't know how that works. No, there's liquor and beer everywhere. I don't understand how the fight is easier or harder.
It was that I wouldn't have been given the second chances that I was given had I been black. Okay. I wouldn't have been given the job that I was to give me a chance. Yeah. What's that, Daniel?
Yeah. I said my dad did. So yeah, had I been in the room, I would have said, let me talk to you about my dad. And then before that, I would have really wondered if I knew that person, I would have wondered if there was a Christian connotation to that, then right there, God has everything possible for you if you think that way. So let me say, he sees me as he sees you, and there's no other difference there.
I just got chills.
Exactly.
I love you, Danielle.
It's so weird how not like what I heard Martin Luther King talking about
the content
conversation is, literally everything is determined by your race. Everything.
Yeah.
That is not.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in that world. I don't even care if I'm the one I don't even care if it's advantageous for me to do so, because to me, there's no honor in that. I think
that word is missing. What you just said.
And I'm going to get into a little bit of that because you're talking about people being tough. I read a lot of Greek mythology and stuff like that when I was a kid. I was into like Lord of the Rings and fantasy stuff. And the stuff that we liked about those characters, that they persevered, that they were stoic. Yeah. Like when they had to suffer and there was no way around the suffering, they just freaking suffered.
They just did it.
They just did the job. You know, just like, look,
matter.
I'm here.
You just sacrifice yourself. It's what you're.
The point is, it is what it is. And so, and when there was a fight to be had, you fought the fight, scared or not. That was courage. And like all these virtues that I was taught,
good word.
I should try to like develop in myself and put out into the world. Now I'm being told that those aren't virtues.
No, that's whiteness.
Like I was taught, like that's what it meant to be a man. Like you persevere, like you find a way. And so the whole thing is like, it's like what now is considered a virtue is to whine. And there's nothing wrong with venting and being and having your emotions out there and being able to. You should be in touch with all of that, the totality of your humanity. However, in the middle of a crisis, when there's work to be done, whining is not a virtue. And I tell people all the time, like when they talk about trying to be successful, trying to do business, trying to make money, trying to hustle, I'm like, until it's costing you blood, sweat, and tears to try to succeed and you running into these barriers, you don't get to complain to me. Like if you've been turned down by every bank, if no one will coach you, if people are telling you to your face they won't deal with you because you're black, great. Now we'll talk about how racism is your color is getting in the way of your success, and we'll formulate some alternative strategies. But if you ain't busted a grape yet, and we're already whining about how hard it is and that there's no opportunity to succeed or whatever, I'm like, well, I know people who are doing what you're trying to do, and they're black or they're Mexican or they're Asian, and they seem to be succeeding. So clearly it's not just the color thing. And I'm like, there's a guy in Georgia right now, and this is like the one that's been getting me. And his name is King Randall. And he like built a school from like nothing. He's a 21-year-old black guy.
Oh, yes, I follow him. Yes.
I'm going to give to his campaign. I'm going to give again to his campaign. I already gave to it. I'm going to give to it again because I'm like, you know what he did? He's like, school is stupid. This stuff isn't working. I can do a better job.
I'm just going to do it.
Practical skills. I'm gonna give them trades. I'm gonna teach them how to make money. I'm gonna teach them entrepreneurship and teach them manners and respect and all this stuff that we're talking about right now. He's like, the schools aren't doing it, so I'm gonna just go do it. And he's being successful.
Right.
But he's not. He even said in one of the interviews, he's like, I'm not waiting on the government to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
The job that has to be done. If they want to help me, great. But I'm gonna go do it.
And that's,
you know what's crazy? I'm sorry, Erica.
No, go ahead.
I said what's crazy is that those were the values of the civil rights movement. Those were the values of the Black Power movement, like of the early 20th century. Like the community has to fix itself. We don't want the government involved. And exactly. So even going all the way up. So the fact that people, you know, like it's so sad. Martin Luther King, like it's that day is a complete joke because I'm not, let me not say what I was about to say, but they use his image, his face as some type of a stamp. And again, like MLK Day is big in the unions. It's big like in the left and the progressive, but it's supposed to be some type of a stamp of this vision that they're pushing, which is completely opposite of what that whole movement, he was, you know, the face of it, but that whole movement was about, he was, you know, part of a trajectory that was 100 years. And then Malcolm X, again, totally different. Malcolm X was totally about self-sufficiency, self-determination, self-defense. And it's like, people want to, it's like, he
hated white liberals.
He did. But what's even more funny is like, he would want nothing to do with the people who like wear his face on their shirt. Like he would want nothing to do with you because you're not.
They've turned them into minstrels too.
Thank you. I didn't want to like go there, but
it's true. We're going to parade around the Black people that are going to say the things that we want, that are going to have people buy into that, the like victimization is the highest good that you can experience. And it's like, you're wearing a Malcolm X shirt. Like he hated you.
Yeah, it's like that's what I mean. That's what Margaret Sanger used to do.
That's
they would
not
do.
true 100%, but
No. Margaret Sanger, they would
Oh.
use black people, to go and preach in churches and things like that to get people to buy into their whole philosophy and follow the people that were leading. So yeah,
and I'm sure I'm going to be dragged for what I just said, but like, I really think what's funny about all of the stuff that we're talking about, right? They've done, I say they've done a really good job of dividing this country, right? So
fantastic job.
The only way you can have a country like the United States is if it's founded on principles that everyone buys into, right? So like if we immigrate to Japan, right? We're never going to be Japanese. Nobody's ever going to look at us like we're Japanese people. If we immigrated to Sweden or Germany or Africa or wherever, nobody's ever going to think of us as that. But everyone that is an American citizen is an American. And so that's from the Puerto Ricans in New York City to the Cajun people in Louisiana and the hippies in California, right? We are all Americans. And the only way you can have this large of a multicultural, multi-religious country is because we all agreed that we all had the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yep.
That the Bill of Rights is our foundation. It's not our skin color. It's not our culture, because everybody's got a different culture, right? Every ethnic, whether it's a ethnic group, whether it's, the Vermonters who are, libertarian and like their guns, or, it's all these different cultures. But if I can agree that you also have the right to life, liberty, and happiness, that you also have the right to life, liberty, and happiness, that's how we can remain grounded together and stay unified and continue to like uplift not only ourselves in this country, but the rest of the world. Before the pandemic, poverty was decreasing. And so now they're dividing us. If they can't, like us, like everybody on this call today, James, Michael, everybody that was here, anybody that's watching, right? We can be a multicultural community because we all believe in the same principles. But they want to take away those principles.
Yes.
And that is the fastest way to divide us. That is the easiest way to divide us, because we can't get along with different cultures if we can't agree to live by the same principles.
Because there's no principle. What happens is that anything can be anything the next day.
They're teaching you to be a principal. They're telling you what your principles are. They're reorganizing the thought with family and everything. So,
but at the same time, they're not, because that's not a real principle. Like skin color. How? She just said there's Puerto Ricans and Colombians that are all color of all of that. Like half of us are multi-ethnic if you really look at your background anyways. So most of us aren't pure black, pure white, or pure anything. And so eventually we're going to be all even more of a combination the longer this goes on. And so the thing is that when you have these moving goalposts, you can just keep shifting. And I've read it in one of the books, like Saul Alinsky, I think it's Saul Alinsky's like Rule for Radicals or something like that. And he was talking about, you want a relatively amorphous goal, because if you have a specific goal, we want to take poverty to whatever percentage and black home ownership to, 45%. If you have those goals and you hit that goal, well, then you're done. But if you don't have that, it's like, we got to fight racism, war on drugs. When does that end? When are you done? So what happens is you have
success point?
So you end up having eternal power. That's what happens. And since you don't have principles, people just go with the next crusade. I mean, a couple years ago, it was all men are evil, terrible people. We're all misogynists. It's the Me Too movement, and everybody was basically a rapist and horrible and wants to murder all the women.
Yes.
And we went from that to somehow it's a race thing. Well, but you have men on your side. So
but you're
are they no longer bad?
No, only non-white.
There's an answer for everything.
There is an answer.
Right.
So you know what? I admire the Democrat Party for this reason, and it is they are a serious marketing machine. They're excellent at branding and marketing, and if I'm not a fan of a lot of the Republican Party either. So, but there's some of that. So, I am a fan of you, always. By the way, there's depends on the different people.
Exactly.
But some of that is I think being lazy with sticking with that narrative because there's that in buddy thing happening. The people that are actually in senators and congressmen, stuff like that.
Yes.
But there's also that fear of alienating a group of people and not taking the risk, which I think, as Olga, Erica, and Ben, and myself, we're independent filmmakers. We are independent minded. You're independent minded because you're libertarian, Olga. So, but that to me right there is the fuel of the future. And so when that group, us really get to understand that we need to change the narrative through entertainment, through technology, through things, schools, because you get our kids young.
Exactly.
That's when the conversations start, and the switch. I see it with my own kids who go to a certain school, that they're coming home and teachers had a teacher, and I wrote on his homework because I saw it was on bias, and they were talking, and they specifically picked out Fox News, which I was tripping out. So I watch everything and I read everything. I'm not sitting here and stuck here, but the fact that they sit there and the way they languaged the statements to teach him were so biased. So it was a bias upon bias conversation. And I was tripping out on that, just and saying conservatives were not flexible and open-minded, and they defined the way they saw conservatives. And so I'm a conservative. So obviously I'm like, that ain't me at all. Let me write down what that is. So anyway, but that's not me.
Did you say something?
I sure did. I wrote it in his homework and turned it in for him.
You better get an A too.
I'm like, I said, this is what, anyway, I said a whole bunch of stuff in there. And I said, this is from his mom. You have to step in. You have to step in. You get the principal involved. Whatever you need to do, you need to step in. And you can be respectful, because there's racism. I know there's racism. I still experience it in this business. And so I have no qualms about saying that stuff exists.
Yep.
So,
well, and that's what it makes me so mad when everything is racist. It's like,
then what is it? Then you're just devaluing when it really happens, and it really
exactly.
happens. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. Okay, so hold on. We've actually been on for 2 hours.
Yeah, we have.
I have a question for Olga. I want to ask Olga a specific question.
Okay.
I want to ask Olga a question too after you, Ben. I have a question.
Okay.
There was this book, I forget what it is, but it's a black guy who was part of the communist movement and turned away from it, but he wrote a book, and he said somewhere in the book that the way that they saw the way to get communism installed here was through race. And
yes. I know. Yeah, I know. I don't remember the name of it, but I've read excerpts of it. Just because I was in that world, I knew people who were in the Communist Party, the CPUSA, Workers' World Party, all these different groups, and they had their youth groups that were in, in the colleges and stuff like that. We would make fun of them because I was with like the Puerto Ricans and the black lefties, so we were like, it's so silly. But and it's funny because now I really have to re-educate myself when I look at certain times of history or certain movies that I saw when I was a leftist. I was like, wait a minute, let me really look at this more critically and not just from a certain lens. So, there's a reality to the fear, to the Red Scare. There was a reality to that where, there were communists who were infiltrating. COINTELPRO, the CIA had a program called COINTELPRO, where they was a counterintelligence program where they had CIA operatives who were going into these radical groups, and particularly the Black Panthers and other groups at that particular time. The Communist Party did similar things in the civil rights movement and other things. And I mean, even I think it was that gentleman. I could be wrong because there's a couple of people who've spoken out about this and written about this, but they even talked about, directives from the USSR about, working with and getting involved in those movements and really bringing them to communism and bringing that there. But not only that, the goal was that the way to destroy the United States was to radicalize Black and people of color, because that was like to destroy it. Like, they didn't want integration. They didn't want people to all be like, we're all Americans. We're going to transcend this, our history. We're going to continue to fight towards what the Constitution is for everyone. So our fight is to make sure that it's for everyone. They don't want that.
Yeah.
So that's true. I mean, and what you're saying about the Democratic Party, like it's so powerful. Like the marketing, I think, that's what I was saying. Like, we have big corporations and big government, like just working together with all this messaging. Yeah. And there's fires everywhere and people just looking around like everything's great because it's the right looking people in the right places.
Yep.
But what's going on?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah. I think I'll get to my question because it kind of relates to that, because some of the studying that I was doing a little while back has to do with exactly what you're talking about. The Soviet structured, that's those people from that era doing exactly what you're talking about and infiltrating our environment here. And they had their specific protocols that they would follow. And you could see it almost playing out during the pandemic, during the rioting.
Yes.
Almost every piece of that. So during the election as well. So I could see a little bit leaning up to it the whole time. And I'm like, this is exactly, I was studying it about a year before that.
That is so messed up.
No, it's because our diversity is also, I would say it's a strength. It is also a weakness.
Well, I've actually even said to people, I have more in common with a Black Cajun person from Louisiana that's a Christian than I do with another white person from Vermont who is an atheist. Like, I have more in common with that person who looks and sounds nothing like me than a person who looks and sounds exactly like me, because we have a foundational belief system that we agree on.
Exactly.
And if we both agree, like, that the in the sanctity of the human life, that you have a soul, that each of us is a child of God, created in His image to do good on this earth, like that we can line up on, and we can garner a lot of power and work together behind that to do good. But if I think that, but it just goes back to that same thing, like that's foundational principles that we can get together and be unified on. And if you start pulling apart all those foundational principles, then you can have.
That's why they don't teach it anymore. They don't teach that anymore.
Yeah.
I had to pulled my oldest out of school last year to homeschool him because they weren't teaching him that at all. They were barely teaching math. It was really a lot of progressive political stuff.
How do you feel about 2 + 2?
No, how about we're going to learn to do like this simple multiplication problem, and I'm going to teach you how to do it 10 ways, because I really don't want you to master math. You don't have to worry about math. Here's a cheat sheet.
That's my kids.
There's no expectations of you.
Everybody passes. Everybody.
The first book
Can I ask a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to ask you, so during your Marxist time, was the words honor and sacrifice, what would that have meant to you? Being an American Marxist, or you probably didn't see yourself as an American?
No,
because
I didn't.
So what did that word, just honoring the movement and sacrificing, did you have an identity? Did you see yourself as a part?
I really saw myself as like, because so much of it is kind of like, so identity politics plays a huge role in this, especially at the time, because this was in the early 90s. So, and that's, I think, some of the manipulation and narrative is the identity politics destroyed the left, by the way. I was surrounded by a lot of good old school people that, even though they were like old commies, they were like anti-war people. They were for workers' rights and stuff like that. They were for civil rights. A lot of them were involved in the civil rights movement. So I identified as that, even though it wasn't like I was this hardcore like person that loved the USSR. It wasn't really like that, but it was anything that was, you know, America was just painted as just like this imperialist thing. Yeah. And so as much as you look at history, because, you know, now you're looking at it with a particular lens, then you just make it fit that narrative. So that's why, like, when you see things like the 16, what is that?
16 project.
Yeah. That, to me, like, that is like it's a wonderful example of like a Marxist lens. Because that's exactly how, you know, and by the way, it's not even historically accurate, but that's another thing. But so there's a way that you're kind of like trained, and it's not like someone is sitting down and saying, oh, this is how you have to look at it. You know, you kind of get it by like hanging out with people and reading, and you really just start learning to pick up what the expectation is of you. And if you're like, it's like, okay, well, I'm a person of color, which means like all white people are this and all of history is that. And okay, I can have, you know, you guys are cool because you've accepted that this is what the situation is. But now, you know, now we're all like radical. And I mean, I've had so many eye openers, and even to the point, because I traveled to Cuba, which is a wonderful, beautiful place with amazing people. But I was there, and, you know, I had to make a decision. Either I'm going to ignore what I'm seeing and be an apologist and say, well, this is because of this, and this doesn't really reflect that centralized economies don't work, which I did for a short time until I was just like, I got a little space from it. And I was like, no, what I saw was messed up. What I saw was wonderful people who are really strong, who do love their country. But this is a system that's destroying them. But it took a lot of time for that. So in that sense, you know, we switch those words with things like solidarity for workers and, you know, things like that, which nowadays, even the left is like, wants to remove itself from that, because it's all about identity. It's not even about, because they don't care. If they cared about working families, half the stuff that they're advocating for doesn't make any sense. If you care about working families, you're not going to push climate attacks on people. If you cared about working families, you're not going to try to disarm people who, you know, whose small businesses are being burnt down.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like we could just talk and talk and talk.
Yeah.
and these conversations are really important. Like, normally I would have like tried to wrap it up earlier because, you know, I tell people how long it's going to be and I want to honor their time. But I just think that these conversations are so important to have. And the most frustrating thing to me right now is when hard conversations are taken out of the public square, that we're not allowed to ask these questions. We're not allowed to ask questions and be wrong. You know, like when I asked you guys about the hair thing and the touching and like, why is it so offensive? Like, if you're not allowed to ask those questions, because if you do, you're a racist, then how will I ever learn how to be more sensitive, more thoughtful, or unbiased, or whatever? Like, and it's like, they don't want us to talk to one another. They don't want us to work it out. I don't know why that.
It's the thought police. It is the thought police.
Like, if we talk to one another, we'll work it out, and that will be bad.
If you're terrified of getting canceled, you're never going to speak the truth. Everything's danger right now. It's kind of like when, this is messed up. Like, dudes sometimes feel that way when they're wives. They feel like they're like getting in trouble all the time. You're just not want to talk. You're just like, you know
say
what?
Yes, dear. Yes, dear.
Sure. Mhm,
But
perfect.
that's
Yep.
Like you did with me the other day.
Yep, exactly. Okay, let's give up. No, we're good.
But that's how powerful like thought policing is because it makes you censor yourself. And I think that is part of a bigger agenda, even though it seems crazy, but of just having people kind of shut down and allowing themselves and everything to be taken over because we're afraid to ask questions. Once I just kind of stepped out and said, I want to have conversation with people that I know that are conservative, that voted for Trump. Like, I want to understand. I was like, we got more in common because I got chickens. I'm trying to grow food. Like, they have skills that I want to learn. Like, they're going hunting. Like, we want to go hunting with them. Like, then it was just like, then the barriers and a lot of the BS that I had stereotyped as a like a Latina coming from the city, moving out, like, I was expecting people to be like hard and stern. I mean, the first interaction, like this reminded me earlier of someone who was just like, so where are you from? And I'm like, from New York City. And she was like, no, where are you from? I could have been a jerk and been like, oh, well, you're being shut. So then I said, okay, my family's Puerto Rican Colombian. She started talking to me in Spanish. She's like, my daughter-in-law's from Costa Rica. Can I practice with you? It was, because I could pass for Greek or Italian too. You know what I mean? Like, but it was an opening. It wasn't that she was trying to be a certain way with me. And like, I think part of it is just as humans, it's like, if we have this shield that we make this assumption about everyone, then it's just like, we're not allowing that. And I think that is the bigger picture of what's happening is they want us to have this idea that everyone who doesn't already, sound the way you sound, that they are just lost and there's no way to communicate with them.
Part of the reason is because we're talking about how we feel about stuff all the time, and you're getting the snippets on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I'm never getting to your principles. And so that's the thing is that's very important whenever we have a talk with anyone serious. I'm like, well, I had a conversation with it was like a diversity guy for 7th generation. He's a gay man. He knew I was a Christian. So I already know he's got his hackles up when this conversation starts. It's like a political party or whatever. We're having a conversation. And we had a conversation about, it was like about trans rights and trans people in sports. And I got him to, I was trying to get him to give me his principle, like what's most important to you, safety of the people fighting or inclusion. And he was like, I think that inclusion and the damage lack of inclusivity causes is most important. And I was like, got it. So now I understand and I can see your paradigm because I know the lens you're talking about. But if you're just yelling, you bigot, rah, 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 and we're just yelling talking points, I never know why you land where you land. And more important to that, a lot of the people who are out there screaming, they don't know what their principles are.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I think. Oh, that is such a good point. Because it's that thing where like if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we can't ever talk about, it's like, it must mean that you're a terrible person if you don't think exactly the same thing that I do.
Yeah. As a Christian person, I'm going to go here for just a second. As a Christian person, for those that are listening or, might be watching this another time, I think that if people pay attention to understanding Genesis and what happened in the garden in the first place, and what happened with this, God's given, Adam and Eve this beautiful place to hang out and chill, and there comes as they're chilling and Stank wants to intervene and hang out too, but decides he's really witty, but throws his thing into the mix and says and knows that he could change the trajectory of what God already has. He doesn't know exactly what God has going on, but there's structure there. There's a lot of things thing that garden is good, but this he changes that. And so then Jesus dies later on because he's letting people know that you can reclaim this back again from what Homeboy did a little while back. And so if people pay attention to those same things are playing out right now. You've got people in the mix that are kind of come in and mess with your brain and twist the truth, give you a little bit of facts.
Yep.
And then give you a little bit of lies.
Yep.
A lot of energy.
And if you're paying attention to, it's exactly right. And so if you pay attention to what's truth versus what is an opinion, in a sense, you will you'll start to see through the lies a little bit better. And I don't think people are paying attention to that. So for those of people that are Christian that are following or just listening and not reading and studying and gaining the truth, you might want to pay attention to where the origins of that came, because it's playing out, and it plays out until you get it. So.
That's so scary.
Oh my God. All right. Well, let's put a pin in it there.
Pin in it.
It really is though. Don't let people are, this is what we always say. People are trash. Okay. You just have to understand.
I don't like that, because I don't think people are trash, man.
You should be positive.
It's trash out there.
Best moments.
You're wrong, Danielle.
Even in their best moments.
Y'all aren't trash.
It says in the big book, not the Bible, but the other big book.
What's the big book?
It says, for a 12-step recovery program. It says, isn't he selfish even when trying to be kind? I'm trying to quote. I used to be able to quote it.
I can't stand
but
it.
it's like we're selfish and self-centered even when we think
that here. My dad.
Oh, right on. There you go. There you go. You know, it's like we, even in our best moments, we are producers of confusion rather than harmony.
Yeah.
And so it is not like everybody is trash, but people are selfish and self-centered. And when you put them in charge by electing them and then giving them permission to run your life.
Right.
Power.
I mean, like, think about this. The guy, like the jock guy that was a jerk in high school. And this is for anybody. The guy that was a jock, okay? That dude is in government, okay? The girl that used to be the hot chick, that was the mean girl that was rude to everybody, guess what? She's in the government.
The tattletale, home monitor,
in the
writing the bills.
And they did not grow up from that person that you remember them to be, okay?
Right. That's funny.
So don't give them more control over your life.
And wait, let me just be clear. Also,
I think that's the most important thing, that we agree on, whether we're white or black or Puerto Rican or whatever, is the government.
Self-govern yourself.
And
we can govern ourselves.
And when we say people are trash and the government cannot be trusted, what we mean is that you should move as if that's the case. Because I'm a Christian, I know you'll sin even when you don't think you are, even when you're trying to do your best. Like, Erica loves me, and that does not mean that she will not do stuff that is jacked up to me on occasion. And that's my wife. How am I going to expect random people down the street to be nicer than her, or be more for me than her, or a random government official I've never met to be more for me than her? That's not a reasonable expectation. So you have to move as if people don't always have your best interests at heart. That's what people are trash means.
That's good.
And then
good
government
definition.
cannot be trusted. Well, we got a book coming out about that. And just look at history.
No, it's reasons to trust the government.
Yeah,
reasons.
That's what the book is about.
But the point is that Fauci told us that he lied on air to get us to do what he wanted us to do.
Literally.
That's the government.
He admitted to lying to us.
The government cannot be trusted. And the people who built the government, who were going to then become the government, wrote in ways to check the government, because even though they were going to be the government, they didn't trust themselves.
Preach it.
Drop the mic.
Preach it.
That's it. That's what that saying means. So that's it. Boom.
That is it. That is it. The founders of America knew that people are trash.
That they were trash. And
that they were trash.
Because
I'm trash. Okay?
They wrote.
They're like,
government
listen, I do
protect
some
the
trashy
people
stuff.
from itself.
I freed myself from the monarchy, but I can be trashy too. So let me make sure, for my grandkids' sake, I limit my trashiness.
Exactly.
Look,
Legacy.
The monarchy is money. That's good.
Oh my God.
The monarchy.
Okay. So everybody, why don't you tell the audience if they want to learn more about you, hear more about what you have to say, tell them, socials, to how to find you, emails, whatever you want. Go ahead, Daniel, you start.
Oh man, I have some gatekeeping on Facebook, so I really have to like you to let you in on that one. So, but you can hit me up. For my company, you can hit us up at sparkstudio.com. That's SPARX studio.com, or indiesparks.com with an S on the end. Our Instagram, just hit me on Twitter. I'm all over the place. So
all right.
find me.
Danielle
Thank you.
Weatherford. All right.
Danielle Weatherford, Danielle Cavanis Weatherford. So
Oh, you know what? I got to make sure I got everybody's name. I don't think I put everybody's name. I'll put links in the description after. Go ahead, Olga.
You can find me on Facebook at Liberty and Me, and you can email me libertyandme802@gmail.
Ooh, Liberty and Me 802.
Yeah,
at Gmail.
at Gmail.
Okay.
Copy.
How about you?
Oh, at Instagram, at The Violence Conductor. Facebook, Benjamin Nathaniel Reddick II. I'm going to be the only black dude with REDIC is how I spell my name. It's not hard to find. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah.
BallistaBlade.com.
Twitter.
And Lady Reddick.
Lord and Lady Reddick.
Austin Action Fest.
Oh,
That as well. AwesomeActionFest.com.
And why don't you pitch that? You guys have a film festival coming up, don't you?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Ben.
Nope, Daniel, you got this one.
Oh, we are just the most awesome action film
Speaking of female
festival.
board members,
Yes. Woman of color as well.
Mhm.
Austin Action Fest is I would say the premier action festival, of global action festival that will be happening. Is it June? It's June date. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting my June dates. Ben. July. Yeah, I don't have it pulled up right now, so I need Keisha. Keisha, our other board member, keeps us in check.
Yeah, it's like 11th and 12th. Yeah.
Yeah. So come and tune in and see the most awesome action films that you can see across the globe. So
do they get to vote? Do people watching the film
Yes.
festival get to vote?
They do. For the Austin Action Festival market, people do get to vote and participate. There's a crowd voting system we have. So yeah.
And also, if you have films, is submission still open?
Still open till May 3rd, I believe, is the first day.
I think it's May 3rd.
AustinActionFest.com.
AustinActionFest.com.
So
You can also find us on filmfreeway.com as well.
And if you're looking for a film to be distributed, that's also because it's market side as well. So
exactly. So if you want something distributed, if you've got something already, if you've got any, and people can submit anything with action in there, right? So it could be like a dance, like video,
standalone action sequence. We take it all.
just like a short. It could be a feature length film. There's like all kinds of different stuff.
To hit it, script, short, feature length film, and standalone action sequence. So if you made a music video and there's a fight in it, it qualifies.
Like
So Olga, if you do some action something, throw it our way.
I'm gonna do an action like a sequence with my chickens.
I'm
That's
gonna
awesome. I don't know. It might scare me with the end. I don't know if they're gonna eat them or.
At the end, it'll be my rooster chasing me.
Well, I have an idea for something with cardinals, birds.
That too, but I also have something to send Olga to give her some inspiration.
Chickens
really?
are scary.
Oh my God.
There's no fear like a chicken stampeding when you have food for them. They're little dinosaurs. They're no joke. I have fist fights with my rooster.
Are they velociraptor-ish type?
They are. They're so cute and funny, but like I'll be having fist fights with my rooster. I have to walk with a stick. He's something else.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Kind of scary.
He takes good care of his girls, but he could be a jerk.
Oh, that's so sweet. Like every good pimp. Okay.
That's
Exactly.
okay, Erica.
That is the relationship. He has a bottom bitch. You see all of that in the chicken world. You see
I
it.
needed to make sure that I offended everyone today.
Even farmers.
Okay.
Oh
All right. Hold on with me 1 second. I'm going to play the outro and I'm going to end the broadcast. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for listening.
Great.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, comment, beat the YouTube algorithm and all of the things of the things. You can find me on Patreon at Generally Irritable to support our channel.
Please do.
We're doing the news with Guy Page over at Vermont Daily Chronicle. There's all kinds of fun stuff going on. Book coming out, all kinds of fun stuff. Keep in touch. Okay, hold on with me.